that maybe retention is not a big game. We are still people, there are new companies forming, digital first companies are starting to take place. So retention is not a big game for them. There are certain platforms that we are in talks with, so say someone like an Event, a Zoodle, or a Splash. Once these two items are crossed over, that would give me a visibility into, okay, this is the budget, these are the bandwidth, these are the resources I have. Content is a big part in everything that we do, right from events, right from digital, right from LinkedIn.
So I want to touch a little bit on terms of coordination, especially with sales, right? So we all have, as marketers, we all always have problem with sales.
As a field marketer, you have to align yourself to the sales goals.
So as a marketer, something we always think will work, right? So we do campaigns, just based on some gut and instincts, and we also do a lot of campaigns based on past performances, right? So I want to have a follow-up question on the content front. How important it is to regionalize content, and when you say regionalize content, what should I do? So I should have a separate website completely for this region, and my collaterals, everything should talk their language. And how is it important in terms of, you also mentioned that, okay, regional content, you did a Ramadan campaign, right? Is it regional content, does it mean only a very specific festival related campaigns, or is it also that you have to change your messaging, you have to change your language, like you practically, like, the way that Middle East reads, right, they read completely different from us, right? We read left to right, and then they read right to left, right to left, right? How important it is to think that and then change it, and what have you changed which has kind of drastically improved your overall conversion, especially when it comes to this region?
Great question. So localizing content is something which not a lot of companies do until they probably reach a certain critical mass. But there are different aspects to it. I'd like to walk through all of them. So one part is the messaging part of it. A product like MoEngage, it's not very regional specific in the way it is built. So the same product can work in the US, in India, in the Middle East. There is not a lot of, say, compliance related or local laws related things in it. However, it doesn't mean that your communications can be the same. So as I said, it depends on the maturity of your audience. Now, the same platform, it would be called as a customer engagement solution in, say, a country like India. In the Middle East, customer engagement solution is not a category which people really understand or know. They're still sticking to something like a CRM solution or a marketing automation. If you start calling it customer engagement, the kind of people who would understand it or who would come to you would be very different. So initially, we tried that, but we realized that a lot of contact center, customer experience stuff started happening to us, which was a very irrelevant kind of audience for us. That is where I decided, okay, let's not use the global positioning here. Let's move to something very simple. So let's call it a marketing automation platform or a CRM solution, which is something a lot of our companies. And that was also validated by the fact that when I joined, I tried to do a high level research of the kind of people based on LinkedIn and based on our CRM. So a CRM manager, head of CRM, these titles were very much prevalent in the Middle Eastern countries. But these titles you wouldn't typically see a lot in India or the US. You will see mostly growth or retention kind of titles. So you can actually take inputs from that. That maybe retention is not a big game. We are still people, there are new companies forming, digital first companies are starting to take place. So retention is not a big game for them. They are addressing probably a market which doesn't have a lot of volume, not a lot of competition. So retention is probably not the first thing that comes to their mind. It's mostly around acquisition, mostly around automation part of it. So this is where we also played on the part that we started calling ourselves a CDEP, which was customer data and engagement platform. And this is something which at a local level, I wouldn't say that was our global positioning, that was not an approved positioning for us, but at a local level that actually helped us because people understood that we were also in the data and also in the engagement space. So that helped us, say, localize the messaging part of it. Now, coming to the regional nuances, one interesting example was in some of our content, both in the ads as well as an ebook we created, our designer used stock images of an Arab person using local gear. Now, when it came into the public domain, we received a lot of backlash on it because it was a stock image. It showed certain aspects in a very insensitive way. Though we wouldn't have understood it, they pointed out. So I started speaking to a lot of people. I tried to pacify them, and I also asked them, so what is the issue? Then they told them, this is not how it is worn. Maybe the side is wrong. Maybe the color or the way they have worn that cloth is different. So those are certain nuances you have to take care of. And when you go for stock images, you might not realize, because you feel that it's a global platform. We are using licensed images. Why not go ahead with it? But those things matter a lot. The third angle which really worked for us was localizing. I mean, let's say you have an ebook on a particular topic. However, the kind of examples, let's say the brands use, the people quotes, the testimonials, if we took them from the local brands, that actually help people relate better to it. So rather than hearing from a Walmart, which is a US company, people love that we use quotes from Apparel Group, which is a big name in the UAE market. Those are some things that really helped us. So I think all those parts are a big part in the localization aspect of content. It's not necessary that you need to translate stuff. So at our stage, we took a decision that we will not run anything in Arabic, because most of the audience that we sold to, even though they were speaking Arabic, they could understand English. So we didn't invest in Arabic at that point. We felt that we were not at that stage. English was still working. It was also about those nuances. I mean, those people preferred that we had English content. So when some of our local SGRs tried to send them Arabic emails, they were asking, why are you not sending English? So that was also great feedback for us. So it's probably the way something would work in India, where we still conduct business in English, even though we might converse in Hindi or Tamil or Kannada and all of that. I think that was an interesting thing for us. So it was not directly related to content marketing. It's somewhere in the scheme of communications. So those are certain aspects that work really well for us.
Got it. Okay. So we talked about the campaigns, we talked about the budget. I want to talk about the tech stack. So how does your tech stack look like for your regional marketing efforts?
So, I mean, as a regional marketer, we didn't have anything very different from, say, what a central team would have. It was mostly an extension of it. So for marketing automation, it was HubSpot. We used Salesforce as a CRM. Those were the logical things. We had a Zoom for the webinars, though in my region, we didn't do a lot of webinars, but that was it. So we didn't have any special or very different tech stack for my kind of efforts. Long story short.
So again, similar, Salesforce, HubSpot, Zoom, anything that you've used for field marketing events to track the progress or.
So there was a talk to probably buy or onboard an events management platform. But we are still in the process of whether to go ahead with it. The kind of volume we did for our own events, that would make sense. So that was a pitch that I had made, and also supported by other regional marketing heads. But then given the condition we were right now at, we are not yet procured it. However, there are certain platforms that we are in talks with. So say someone like an Event, a Zoodle, or a Splash. But the final decision is pending. I think personally, if you are at a critical mass of doing your own events, it really makes sense to use an event management platform. The reason being, you do a lot of the communications pre-event, you do a lot of audience generation, and the registration part, sending them tickets, your QR codes, and then actually printing a lot of that stuff at the event where you come, you get even the batches. And how do you mark them as check-in and check-out? So that you know these people have attended, these are not attended. And based on that status, how do you send up the follow-up communication? All of this becomes really easy if you have an event management platform, because these things can be done manually using your existing set like HubSpot, but then it becomes a lot of manual work. Doing it manually, probably marking the status in Excel, creating those separate lists. An event management platform really helps you seamlessly do all of those things. So that is probably the next big thing that would come in our tech stack. But right now, we are still looking for it.
Correct. So based on your experience, can you list the campaigns or channels in the order of preference? We talked about multiple channels, like basically events and digital, right? So I want you to kind of list down the order of preference. One being the top, and then 2, 3 being the next. How do you rate them? How do you rate these channels? Like, especially for
rate these channels for what?
For success, for performance, better pipeline. Like, what is your preference?
Perfect. I get it. So there were certain marquee events which are put into a priority 1 or number 1. Those were events which are done by big media houses, which are attended by top prospects. So you
Mm.
are assured of a good experience, you're assured of a good audience out there. So those would probably be the first ones I would put in my plan.
Got it.
Those would be probably followed by my own calendar of what events we would do on our own. It could be small
Mm.
scale conferences, it could be large scale summits, it depends on the maturity of the market. Once these two items are crossed over, that would give me a visibility into, okay, this is the budget, these are the bandwidth, these are the resources I have. So the next would be, as I said, digital. Now, based on
Okay.
digital, the biggest thing that worked for us and something which I personally love was LinkedIn. Paid LinkedIn gave us good
Mm.
results in terms of the ability to reach the audience, in terms of both the person as well as the account. So that is something I would put at number three. Though I wouldn't want to differentiate between an event or LinkedIn, because that is not apples to apples comparison. Most of those things go in support with each other. But then LinkedIn paid is something which ranks a bit high on my personal scale. That would follow up with, say, Google Ads. Google Ads mostly on a very specific note, competition ads or product ads. I am not a big fan
Mm.
of bidding on my own brand, bidding on competition just to get that
Mm.
attention, and say bidding on product specific keyword because people are searching for something. So that is mostly for the high intent kind of stuff, where you assume that you have sufficient awareness so that people will come or maybe just discover you. So that was the fourth part of it. Fifth would
Got
be
it.
content. Content, though not directly measurable, it helped
Uh,
us a lot, either through word of mouth, to organic social. So creating that localized content, we spent a lot on content in terms of human bandwidth. So taking that effort to create case studies, press releases, testimonials, interviews, podcasts, and reports and surveys meant for the region. So that was
Great.
a big, big supporting structure, and it's a non-negotiable thing for me as a regional marketer. And finally, PR. I mean, PR is something you use based on the needs. So in a mature market where you have a lot of customers, you tend to do those announcements regularly, like X and Y became a customer, you release some kind of new thing, they expanded and all of that. In a new market, you might not have a lot of things to say. So the order of PR is something I've kept at the last. So those are probably the hierarchy that I would place.
Got it. So I want to touch a little bit on terms of coordination, especially with sales, right? So we all have, as marketers, we all always have problem with sales. So what is your suggestion in terms of how do you manage sales expectation, especially when it comes to regional stuff? For some people who starting out and some people who was already matured here, right? Is it something that you work differently, or is it something that because of the size of the market, which is fairly smaller compared to other regions, right? How does the collaboration with sales works? Do they come up with campaign plans? Do you come up with campaign plans? Like, can you maybe take a couple of minutes to explain your thought process or how you have worked with sales to for enabling this successful, right? So successful launching of campaigns, or seeing success, especially when it comes to this Middle East and Africa region. And yeah, so talk to us a little bit in terms of how you managed to work with sales and you know like the entire process.
For me, a regional or field marketer, the biggest stakeholder is sales. And while it's globally acknowledged that sales and marketings have issues, I think this was one of the sweet associations I had in my tenure out there.
Mm.
The main reason being, as a field marketer, you have to align yourself to the sales goals. So if sales believes that you might probably want to sell to retail in, say, a particular country, and if marketing is focusing on banking in a different country, things are not going to work. There is a reason why our regional marketing or field marketing team has been set up, because you are at a particular stage, you really need to support sales in actually growing that region. So that alignment is the biggest thing. Now, how would those that alignment work? It depends on what they need. Do they need brand awareness in a particular market? You work on those activities. Do they
Mm.
feel that we are covered well, we have a good word of mouth, but I need a bit of help when it comes to closing accounts? But well, you need more bottom of the funnel stuff, more things on use cases, on product adoption, or maybe compliances, integration, say the bottom of stuff, product marketing. So those are things you as a regional marketer align yourself with sales. Now, when it comes to planning campaigns, it is well acknowledged that the objective for sales is always closing. So they might not
Mm.
think holistically in terms of things which do not give you direct numbers. So something like a PR or a content plan or an organic plan is something they wouldn't be interested in. So how do
Mm.
you really get their attention? It's based on you talk to them on their needs. So they would say that we need these top 10 accounts from the region. So you ask follow-up questions or maybe you work on them. So where do these companies fall into? Is this a particular industry? Is this a particular segment? Say this is digital first companies or these are enterprise conglomerates. Based on that, you do a next bit of deep dive. If there are conglomerates, what is their buying panel? Where do we typically face more challenge? Is it with the main stakeholder? Is it with the supporting sponsor, say a finance or a procurement guy? Typically, these larger enterprises will have a lot of different stakeholders who are in the buying process once the main team has probably gone ahead with the approvals. So let's say in our case, marketing was the main function we sold. So you would get in a buy-in for marketing. They would have done their research through various means, say event, digital content, and they are sure that MoEngage is going to solve their needs. So the next step becomes they need clearances from their IT, their procurement, their finance, or maybe even their CEO. So is there a way you can help sale into navigating this? This could be hierarchy mapping. This could be overcoming objections. For example, from an IT case point, there are a lot of questions around security, compliance, data residency. So if as a marketer you keep stuff ready in terms of educating them already, it kind of saves time for a salesperson to go into that, and that time saved actually generates a lot of revenue because something which might have closed in the next quarter and close this quarter, that's a big boost for you. That helps you earn the trust of sales. So the other thing that we closely work on is events. Now events is probably the only marketing thing where sales is very closely involved in, be it being at the event, be it speaking opportunity, be it getting their prospects. So you either call them for meetings, you either call them as a part of speaking panels. So there you have to do a discussion with them on who do you get, who do you invite. All said and done, while marketing should support sales, I feel as a marketing leader, you should also hold on your own. It doesn't mean that you have to 100% follow your sales.
Yeah.
You are a functional leader. There are certain things that you know. So you can have to learn to say no. It is probably the most trickiest part of this role is saying no. You'll get ad hoc requests saying, let's do this event, let's do this content, let's put an ad for this. But you know your resources, you know your budget. You probably know that certain ad hoc things no do not work. So you probably have to say no. However, in a more friendly way, you have to explain that why we are not doing this. Probably we could do this in a different way. So those are different ways of objection handling that work with the sales. At the end of
Got
the
it.
day, if you convince your sales team that what they are achieving it's for the entire company or for the entire team, it helps. It shouldn't be seen that marketing is pursuing its own goals and sales has a different set of goals to pursue. Then it becomes like a team divided. So as it's a commonly said cliche, one team, one dream. If you follow that, it typically helps. So in my tenure, I was glad that I had this nice relationship with both my sales head as well as my SDR heads because these were the biggest stakeholders I had to
Yeah.
work with on a day-to-day basis.
Got it. Okay. So again, I wanted to ask about field marketing. So what do you think is the biggest misconception about field marketing? And one piece of advice you will probably give for aspiring field marketers. So actually, a couple of questions, so you can split that and then answer separately. Also, I'm fine with that.
Yes. So this is something I always talk to a lot of my colleagues or in my network that often people think that field marketing is only events. I would say it's events plus plus. There are a lot of
Hmm.
things apart from events that a field marketer does. So in one liner, that's the biggest myth around field marketing. Field marketing is not just events. It's a lot of set of integrated marketing you do for a particular territory or a region. And the second thing was one biggest advice for upcoming field marketers is don't think yourself as just a marketer. Try to think holistically. You can think in two shoes. Step one, act like a mini CMO. Think that
Hmm.
this region is the entire company and you are the CMO of it. So you start thinking from different aspects of marketing. And the second part is slowly start thinking like a CEO. It's a business, it's not just marketing. So you need to understand, say, different facets at a basic level of other GTM functions like sales, your partnerships, customer success, and SDRs. What drives them? What are the different things that they do during the day? What are those areas which they face challenging? And this is where you come actually help them. If you are aligned with that, that actually helps. And then finally, the last step would be communication, both verbal as well as written. If you are able to communicate what you do, be it terms of project management, time management, and conveying the objectives, goals, or whatever activities you're doing, I think most of the things are sorted. I think that is my tip for all upcoming marketers.
Yeah, so I think with this we have almost come to the end of the podcast. So I have one final question, Nikhil. So as a marketer, something we always think will work, right? So we do campaigns, just based on some gut and instincts, and we also do a lot of campaigns based on past performances, right? So one thing that you thought this campaign is very well done and very well thought out, planned, which kind of did very badly, pathetically, bombed, versus something that you kind of did something, launched like very short period of time, no plans, uh, and I think that's something that just clicked pretty well. So any experience or any kind of situation you can probably explain. So I'll give you some example of this, right? So when I was head of ABM at Kistlo, so I ran a campaign, which was very very stupid, very simple campaign, and it worked really well. Okay, and I hardly spent time on any copy or nothing. I just like created the campaign, I sent it. I thought, okay, let me experiment, and it worked pretty well. So it gave me about 38 meetings overall in a 3 month time frame, and it is I spent hardly any money on that, which is something that I've really planned pretty well. Thought about it, created a proper plan, structure to it. I did ABM, so basically I created an account list, and I created a orchestration, like a plan. First orchestration, what should I do? Then the next is like LinkedIn campaigns, then probably followed up with some gifting and stuff, which didn't give me the same result as this one, which was executed in a hurry but gave me amazing results. So do you have any experience like that?
Yes, that's actually a very great topic, which would help a lot of our audience. So one thing was, it was mostly, I wouldn't call it a proper campaign. It was a set of activities I did.
Hmm.
So I started a regional content hub. It didn't mean creating anything new. It was just aggregating different stuff which was very useful to the region. And
Hmm.
it started with, say, creating a small page which hosted kind of all of those different formats of content meant for the region. Second step was creating a newsletter on LinkedIn, which I wrote personally and I shared with the network. And that
Hmm.
actually, without us putting a lot of effort, it helped us get a lot of traction. So
Hmm.
roughly, we ended up with 900 subscribers in less than a month, which was great. When we did an analysis, it was a lot of valuable or very relevant audience that was subscribing to the newsletters,
Hmm.
and today it has grown about 2,000. So that was a big thing without a lot of effort. We didn't put in a lot of thought, but that actually spurred us to do something which is beyond the regular tactics. The third part related to the same was, without anyone's idea, at the spur of the moment, I thought of starting a job board. What it
Hmm.
meant was not posting jobs, but sharing jobs relevant to the ICP through my
Hmm.
newsletter. And that actually
Hmm.
gave us a lot of visibility. People started talking to me on IMs, through LinkedIn, directly
Hmm.
messaging
Hmm.
that this is what I am looking for something. And then people who are actually hiring also started coming to me. And Nikhil, do you have people who are probably skilled in set A, set B, skill set A? And it kind of created an ecosystem where we had both the employees as well as employers from our domain trying to interact with a solution provider like us. And again, it was done without thought. It was just a spur of a moment thing, which gave us good results. So that was the first part of it, which was well
Correct.
received. The second part was, we, we do a lot of our own events, and one was a huge summit we did. We put in a lot of money, lot of time, lot of planning, lot of resources. And at the end of the day, the results were not very encouraging,
Hmm.
because one thing was the calendar planning was not good. While the dates for the particular event, it was a huge summit. I mean, a day long summit where we hosted more than 600 people, more than 800 people registered. Why it was not impactful was because, as a team, we were caught in a series of events. So the kind of preparation, right from invitations, right from the logistics, right from all of the smaller things which probably need to be taken care of, that didn't happen. Everything was done in terms of planning, money was allocated, but the execution didn't go on well. And the
Got
second
it.
was post event. It was a period where it was a lull. So the despite doing such a grand event, it went into, say, people lost memory of it. So there was no way to get back to people, because either they went on leaves, they were on holidays, they were traveling. So the entire momentum that we created, both from, say, organic, both from the event promotions, social media, that kind of went into waste. So we felt that it was a huge team, all different functions coming together, right from C-suite, because there are C-suite speakers out there, lot of money from partners, lot of PR, lot of paid promotions. All of that really didn't get well. So that was a big that sometimes big is not always the best. So
Got
those
it.
are the two examples I have.
Oh, oh, nice, nice. I think it was great information. Thanks, Nikhil. I think with this, we have come to the end of the podcast. Thanks for joining us. A lot to learn for each one of us. I've also learned a lot in terms of how to do regional marketing. Even though I've been a marketer, I've never actively focused on, especially on the Middle East and Africa side. Spent a lot of time on India, US, and Europe also. I've worked in Europe for some time, so which means I kind of know that market a little bit. I think MENA is something that I've never done. So for me also, it's a new experience to learn something from you. The entire podcast, there is multiple aspects that we talked about. We talked about campaigns. We talked about budgets, how to spend budgets. We talked about what are the different channels you can spend on. We also talked about if your budget is fairly less, medium, large budgets, like how to spend, which channels to spend, how to regionalize content. Yeah, there's a lot to learn, and for early marketers like who's starting, for them, there's good learning about field marketing, what to do on field marketing, how to run campaigns. So I think in this episode we've covered a lot of these topics, and I'm very happy that we kind of touched upon all of this. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks for joining the podcast. Amazing hosting you. Look forward to much more sessions like this.
Thanks, Karthik. Thanks for the opportunity. I believe it was great to share those insights. I mean, often we have our resumes and LinkedIn profiles, but this gave me a chance to speak a lot about the work which probably has never been published anywhere. So it was fun from my side and good learning as well, because I had to think about different instances and you put me in
Correct.
a spot at some of those, which actually helped. So I appreciate it and looking forward to it.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for watching this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, and please subscribe.